hydration friends. Today we are talking about water, which is why I'm with my friend, say hi Mimi, and we are in the pool because the pool is full of water. Did you know that water is our most essential nutrient? If we go even just a few days without water, we really start to feel the effects of dehydration. This is because 60% of our body's weight is made of water. And so if you start to lose that, you're gonna really feel icky. So water is our most essential nutrient. That's why like on Survivor, they can go a while without food and I mean, they get nasty to one another, but they survive it. But if they don't have water, it's a real problem. Shout out to Survivor. Water has some really essential functions in our body. First of all, it's a solvent, and that means that it dissolves things like amino acids, glucose, minerals. So think about making lemonade with sugar. If you pour sugar into water and you mix it around, the sugar dissolves, it disappears. Same thing with salt. If you put salt in water, you mix it around, the salt dissolves. Water is a solvent, it's dissolving that. Same thing is happening in our bodies with amino acids, glucose, and minerals. Water is also a cleansing agent. So how do we cleanse our bodies? We pee things out. We pee out extra vitamins, we pee out nitrogen waste products, we get rid of things in our urine. Urine has water in it, and in fact the color of your urine will change based on how much water you are excreting. So if you're really dehydrated, your urine's going to be really dark colored. If you're a good level of hydration, your urine should be like light yellow. If you start to like break down your muscles because like you've run a marathon and you've dehydrated yourself, your urine could even be red, which is not good. Water, so that's the cleansing agent part of water, is its involvement in urine. Water is also a coolant. So like if Mimi was sweating, you could see beads of sweat rolling off her, and that is because she would be cooling herself. Now a lot of animals actually can't sweat, like dogs, they don't really sweat, so they pant, and luckily humans can sweat, so that's one of our main cooling mechanisms, is to sweat it out, as the Bikram yoga teachers would say. Finally, water is a lubricant, so it's lubing joints in our body. It provides like spinal fluid to protect our spinal nerves, and so it is providing like protection, cushioning, lubrication throughout our body, and that's really an important function. So water is a solvent, it is a cleansing agent, it is a lubricant, and it is a coolant. All things that water is essential for in our bodies. Yay, Mimi. Mimi says, yay. We really want to maintain our water balance in our bodies, and to do that our body will not excrete as much water in our urine if we're dehydrated. That's why the color will change. And if you get dehydrated, so you don't have enough water, that can cause overheating. And so it's kind of a serious condition to be dehydrated and overheated. Okay, so what's happening when you're dehydrated? What happens is that your cells will shrink a little bit, and this shrinkage will lower your blood pressure. As your blood pressure lowers, that signals your hypothalamus in your brain that you're dehydrated, and your hypothalamus will initiate your thirst signals. Your hypothalamus will also release a hormone that tells the kidneys to shift water back into the cells from the urine, so stop excreting so much. If you are dehydrated, you really can't think about anything else until you rehydrate. It's very uncomfortable, and that is by design so that you will prioritize drinking water. Now, you can also be overhydrated, and that's called hyponatremia. Hyponatremia means too little sodium. So if we have too much water in our body, it will dilute the concentration of sodium in our cells. We want fluid-electrolyte balance. Sodium is an electrolyte. If we have too much water and it dilutes the sodium, we can have negative effects from that too, and a lot of them are very similar to the symptoms of dehydration. So too little water, too much water, symptoms are very similar. That's why like in running races, triathlons now, or marathons, they will have you weigh yourself before the race and write it on your race bib. That way if you show up at an aid station and you're showing signs of a water imbalance problem, like you're dizzy, you have a headache, you're disoriented, they can weigh you and try to figure out if you're overhydrated, you weigh more than you started, or if you're dehydrated, you weigh less than you started, and then they'll treat it depending on what they find. The issue that people were having is that they were showing up at aid stations and being treated for dehydration, but they were actually overhydrated, so that was killing them. This was bad. So races changed their policies, and now they'll check for overhydration as well as dehydration. So the DRIs for water are that men get 13 cups of fluid per day from beverages, and women get 9 cups of fluid per day for beverages. The rest you can get from food. So you'll get about 80% of your water from beverages, and then the rest from food. Some foods are really watery, like watermelon, like broccoli, many fruits and vegetables, berries, things like that. And some foods have like no water, like peanut butter. That's not gonna have that much water. So if you mix up all your foods in the day, you're getting a fair amount of water from food, which is nice. So that's the DRIs, 13 cups for men, 9 cups for women. A good way to meet this is just to follow your thirst. Unless you're having an issue where you're constantly dehydrated or overhydrated, you can really rely on your thirst mechanisms to guide you in how much to drink every day. Okay, so next thing I want to talk about is fluid electrolyte balance, because water is really important with that. You might have been wondering what happened to Mimi, but she has a head injury, so she had to rest. So fluid electrolyte balance, what does that mean? Well, electrolytes are charged ions, and a bunch of them are minerals. So sodium, potassium, chloride, they're all minerals, and they function as electrolytes in this charged ion state. So potassium is has a positive charge, sodium has a positive charge, and chloride has a negative charge. They get from their mineral state to the charged ion state because they partially dissociate in water, and so they pick up a charge. It has to do with losing hydrogens and whatnot, or gaining them. So they pick up a charge, short version. Water flows freely between cells, but the ions don't float freely. They need to be transported. So transport proteins will take ions from inside the cell and put them outside the cell, but water can just freely flow. So the transport proteins are going to shift how much sodium is inside the cell or outside the cell, and then water will follow it. Let's take a look. I put a cup of water in each of these cups, and then to simulate sodium ions, I'm going to put 10 Reese's Puffs into each cup. So now we have equal concentrations of water and Reese's Puffs, or sodium, in each of these two cups. So you can see there's 10 on each. They have equal level of water. They have the same concentration of sodium and water. But now, let's say that I put 10 more puffs in one of the cups. So now this glass has double the concentration of puffs, or sodium, than this glass. If I want the concentrations to be equal again, I need to add water from this glass into this glass. So I could, making sure none of the puffs will cross the cell membrane. But by increasing water in this, I now have more volume in this cup, but I have equal concentrations of water and puffs. I have double the amount of puffs in this cup, so I need to have pretty much double the amount of water as I have in this cup for the concentrations in each to be equal. So that's a good example of how, even though the volumes of the cups might not be the same, the concentrations of puffs in the cup, the concentrations of sodium inside and outside the cell would be the same. And it happened because I put more puffs in here, so water had to flow towards the more concentrated vessel, or in this case, cup. So that's how fluid electrolyte balance works. We attract water towards sodium, and so by moving sodium inside and outside of the cell, the cell will control how water moves, either into or out of itself. water safety standards. So who's making sure our water is safe? The government agency that's supposed to be doing this is the Environmental Protection Agency, or the EPA. So the EPA sets water quality standards that municipalities across the nation need to follow to make sure their water is safe. Now, whether you think your municipal water is safe somewhat depends on whether you think the EPA is looking out for you. There's been a lot of talk in the Trump administration, for example, that in fact the EPA has a lot of pro-business policies and maybe is relaxing clean water standards. You can look into that if you're interested. Municipalities may also go above and beyond the EPA's regulations, so you should check with your own municipal water to see if you think it's clean and drinkable. But most municipal water is tested really regularly and can be trusted to be clean. Municipalities also have to issue water quality reports every year. So for example, in Vermont, you can look up the results of the water quality report for your town, which is really excellent because then you can do your own research and see how safe your water is. And we know, of course, of really high profile complete failings of this system, like in Flint, Michigan, where the water contained lead. For quite some time, people were saying, this water is not right, this water is off color, this water doesn't smell right, this water doesn't taste right, this water is making me sick, and nobody listened. And part of that is probably about the racial injustices in our country and systemic racism and cutting corners with how we safeguard all populations in this country. So we need to always be making sure that clean water is available for everyone, not just rich people, not just white people, all people. So when you are voting, make sure you're voting for people that are going to ensure clean water, because water is a precious resource and we really want to be protecting it in this day and age. Some people like to drink bottled water, but bottled water is actually not really any safer than most municipal waters. In fact, some bottled waters are municipal waters that companies just bottle and then they sell them to you. So you get regular water plus plastic, plus you waste money. So most people do not need to drink bottled water. If you like the taste of it, great. If you're in a place where the water is not safe, then you can drink it. But most of us do not need to be drinking bottled water, and it just adds to the waste when we are drinking it. We know that UVM has a bottled water ban, so you can't buy bottled water on UVM's campus. That was to safeguard, that was for environmental reasons that they enacted and sustainability reasons that they enacted the bottled water ban. Nutritionally, if bottled water isn't around, then people buy drinks that have a lot of sugar and artificial sugar and whatnot. So maybe nutritionally it's not ideal, but it does kind of make no sense to sell something that we can get for free and we can just carry around our water bottle. Now you do have to clean your water bottle, which is like a whole thing, and I'm not very good at it. So don't, do as I say, not as I do. But especially in the times of COVID, we should really be cleaning those a lot. But long story short, you don't need to be drinking bottled water. It's probably just as safe as your municipal water, but you do want to be safeguarding your municipal water. So make sure you know what your town is doing to keep your water safe. This is a stormwater pond in our backyard. So this pond is full of, not the best quality of water. I wouldn't swim in there, drink that. Nope. But it's the runoff when the rain happens. But towns collect that so that it's not just draining into places where it shouldn't. Now, if you turn around, you look at my pool, that is an example of a highly regulated water source. So we're constantly testing that to try to make sure that it is within the limits that it should be. We're adding chemicals, chlorine, baking soda, nothing like nasty, hopefully. My husband does it, so trust. But municipal water supplies are also adding things like chlorine to keep them safe. Sometimes they add fluoride. We'll talk more about fluoride when we talk about fluoride. But generally, municipal water will have some minerals in it, but those can be really good for you. You might have a well. If you have a well, you definitely probably have minerals in that well water. My parents have a well, and they have all sorts of yummy minerals in their water. They do have to soften the water, which means add sodium to the water for doing things like dishes and laundry, but you don't really want to drink softened water because of the added sodium. So much to know about water. But we've actually covered most everything about water. It has some really main roles in our body. It's cooling us, it's cleansing us, it is lubricating our joints. And then water is keeping our acid-base balance correct across our cells. Water can be found in all sorts of foods, and we want water to be safe. So go forth and go into the world thankful for water and keeping it safe and healthy for all. Bye guys. Hey guys, today I'm here with my friend Mimi because we're talking about water. Float away back to the ocean, I'll go back to the city lights. I'm stuck in the middle of a pool with me and friends. Stuck in the middle.